Today we're talking robots, right? How to build them, how to, make them walk. No, we're talking artificial intelligence, right? So, if you guys have been hearing about all the hubbub, the scuttlebutt of artificial intelligence and how it's affecting, or how will it affect all of the creative jobs and just different positions in different industries. What do we do with that? And today we want to talk specifically about how do we use it? How do we take this tool and utilize it and make it work with us and for us? And I think that's what Kirk has for us today, if I understand correctly. So,
thank you, Jared. Thank you,
yeah.
Jared.
Also, before I give it to you, I was going to hand it to you, and then I was like, wait, no, hold on. I want to plug real quick. We have a Q&A session at the end of this. So if you have any questions that come up that you already have maybe, but also come up as Kirk shares, and you want to discuss that, you want us to hit on that, drop them in the Q&A. There's a little blue ask button down there in the corner of the chat. Hop over there, drop that question in, and we will do our best to get to them all. Most of them are at the end of today. Also, this is part of the ArtSpeak community. And so if you enjoy today's presentation and talk and all this interaction, we are doing this kind of thing all the time in the ArtSpeak community, and we'd love to have you a part of that. So, all right, there we go. I got that going. Take it away, Kirk. I'm excited to hear from you.
Awesome. Thank you, Jared. Yeah, excited to jump into this. I'll start off with this question. How are you feeling right now about the robot apocalypse? Just let that simmer there. But if you've lived under a rock for the last year and a half, then this may be new, but it's not new to you. You know this, what's going on here. Different applications of AI have been released with blinding speed. Honestly, the advancement over the last year and a half has been incredible. And the reality is, at this point, there's some advantages, there's some challenges that they face in using those for the things that we do as creatives. But if we're not keeping up with it, I think we're going to fall behind. If we're not taking advantage of the acceleration and some of the new possibilities that come from it, then I think we're losing out. I don't know what happens down the road. I don't think the robots are going to take our jobs anytime soon. But I do think we want to know how to use those robots and use them effectively. And so we're going to jump into this. And specifically, by the way, we're talking about AI-generated imagery. There's a whole lot of things that you could talk about in this AI world on different ways that we as creatives could use AI. I want to focus in on AI-generated imagery. And I want to talk about some specific use cases that we found useful here at ArtSpeak already, and I see even more potential for in the future that I don't necessarily see other people talking about. And so we'll get into that in a minute. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so we can look at lots of visuals as we go along here, lots of examples, and see how the sausage is made so far. So I want to talk about AI for branded imagery. We're a branding company. We do a lot of branding. It's not all we do, but that's kind of the bedrock of what we do. And so we're creating these brands. That comes down to, we're doing the messaging for an organization, then we're going to work into those visuals. We're going to try and figure out how do we communicate this message that we've crafted in a visual medium. And so, yeah, that's logo, that's colors, that's typography, but it's also the kind of photos that we use, the kind of images, the kind of design elements that we use. And so as you're building out a brand, you've got to go find images that work with this brand, that fit that brand, fit that message, fit those colors even if you can. And so that gives you a few options. If you're going to create some branded imagery, you can find it on stock image sites. And we use stock extensively. It's an invaluable resource. It's an accelerator. It's definitely faster and cheaper to go grab a stock image than it is to do a custom photo shoot, which is your other option. More powerful option. If you do a custom Photoshop shoot, you can dial in a lot of things very specifically and get exactly what you need with a lot of artistic insight and aesthetic insight. So you're never going to replace the value of a good photographer and a good custom photo shoot, but that's expensive. That takes a lot of time. You've got to get the right models, the location. There is a ton of work that goes into that. And you can spend lots of time in Photoshop. When I first started my design career, by the way, I was too cheap to actually go buy a stock image. That seemed expensive for what I was doing. And so instead of buying a stock, I would spend hours in Photoshop trying to like cobble together the image that I want. I don't recommend it. But what if you could direct your own virtual photo shoot? And what if you could do it cheaply and quickly and with lots of potential for iteration? What if you could choose the model in your images, the location, the colors, the lighting, the mood, just by describing what you wanted? Like maybe you want an amazing full length photograph portrait of a modern, happy cowboy with a big smile looking at the camera with studio lighting isolated. Maybe you want an incredible street photography portrait of an intelligent, confident, satisfied millennial entrepreneur wearing trendy but casual clothes, standing on a busy urban sidewalk with arms crossed. These are AI generated images, in case you were missing that. These are ones that we've used recently uh, in our work when we needed something very specific that we were struggling to find on stock image sites. What if you want a beautiful, bright photograph of a blissful, mature black woman smiling at a video call with her laptop, listening to music on over the ear wireless headphones in a brightly lit room with natural light, with decor with small accents of pastel pink and seafoam green? Maybe you want Abraham Lincoln in a coffee shop. He's working on the Gettysburg webinar. Maybe you want an artistic puppy. He's Rembrandt's puppy. Maybe you want a hipster grandpa jumping in a splash of paint. And so all of these that you've just seen, these are all AI generated images based on these exact prompts. And so we'll break these down a little bit further here as we go in. But this is Midjourney. I'm using a tool called Midjourney. I think this is an AI generated image learning model. And it's probably, I picked this one because I think it's the most accessible right now, despite not being as accessible as I'd actually like it to be. It's also, as far as I found, the best at people, because again, this has changed so fast. I started playing with this stuff about a year and a half ago, and at the time, AI generated images were great at like these weird, dreamy, acid trip kind of images. But if you wanted a person, it could only give you nightmare fuel. It did not know how to draw a human face. In fact, a year ago, I was playing around, I just exploring this stuff. How does it work? What can we do with it? I was inspired by the idea of MailChimp. So I gave it a simple prompt. I said, a superhero monkey carrying mail. A year ago is what the top half is what I got back from that exact prompt. I tried it again just now, earlier today, and this is what it gives now. And so this is how fast it's progressing, and it's only going to get better, guys. This is 1 year in, but I think it's crossed this critical threshold where it is now very good at drawing people. And not only that, previously, a year and a half ago, these images that it was generated, it would take an hour to an hour and a half to generate one image. And now on Midjourney, you can go in, you can type your prompt, and within about 60 seconds, you have this grid back of 4 images to choose from. And so it's getting so good now that I think it becomes extremely useful for any creative that needs images in their work. And so I'll give you a quick tour. Midjourney, if you go to the Midjourney site, it looks like this. You can sign up here. But then to actually access Midjourney, you have to join Discord. Now, Discord is it's a forum app. I'd never used it before I had to join for Midjourney, and so it's not something that I'm incredibly familiar with. It started as kind of a platform for gamers to talk to each other. It's expanded since then. It's kind of like Slack or other similar platforms. But you can come in here to Midjourney and to the Midjourney server, and you can begin to generate an image. All right, so in the channel here, in the chat, what do we want to draw here? What do we want Midjourney to give us? Somebody give us some ideas real quick. What do we got? There's a delay between what I see in the chat, so I'm gonna have to wait 15 seconds for you guys to drop in an idea. Anything? Waiting for it. Maybe. A robot Viking playing volleyball. I'm going to go ahead and type that in there, and I'm going to keep talking because it will take. See, I messed it up. We need the imagine keyword there. You give it the imagine command, and you give it a prompt, and it'll start working on that. So we'll come back to that in a minute and see what it's come up with for us. But let me talk about some of the advantages here over other options like stock. When you buy a stock image, you've bought a license to use that stock image in very specific ways. With Midjourney, right now, the way the laws are, and these could change, by the way, all of this stuff, this whole presentation, it probably all is out of date within a few months because this is changing so fast. But for now, you own the results. The images that come out of Midjourney, they're yours to use however you need to. It's inexpensive. The plans for Midjourney right now range from $10 a month to $60 a month for the best version, and that represents a lot of images that you can generate in that time. And then here's a key one that we'll talk about later is once you create an image that you like, you can keep producing more like it. Because once you've dialed in that prompt the way that you want it, now you can just tweak that a little more. You can change the subject matter and you can generate a bunch of images. Whereas if you were looking for a consistent theme of images on stock sites, sometimes you can find a photo shoot that you can draw multiple images from, or a particular photographer that has a style you like. But that's really hit and miss. All right, we're going to come back to Discord here and see what we got here. Here's our robot Viking playing volleyball. So 60 seconds of generation here, and this is what we get. And then with Midjourney here, it gives us a grid of 4, so we can decide which of these we liked, which was closest to the style we want. And then we can press one of these buttons to upscale it. I'm liking our vector-ish guy down here. I think that's pretty cool, so I'm going to upscale that one. And so that's the basics of how Midjourney works. And I'm not going to give a full tutorial on Midjourney. There's other places for that, and you're going to need reference for that. There's lots of little parameters here we can tweak, and we'll get into some of that as we go along. That's not my point here. Really what I want to show is how we can use this to create branded imagery. And so let's push ahead here. There are some challenges, though. There is a learning curve. There are some things you're going to have to learn, and it's easy to jump in and start dropping in some prompts and get things that are wildly different than what you thought you would get. And some things it's really good at, some things not so much. And so dialing in just the right image can take some time. So in some cases, it may be much faster actually to just go search on stock sites and see a bunch of examples of pretty much what you want right away. It's when things get a little more specific and you want a little more control that Midjourney becomes advantage. Uh, you may need an upscaler. There's a limit to the resolution that Midjourney will do for you. And so once you have an image that you like, if all you need it for is digital applications, then maybe that resolution is fine. But if you need to print it or you need to expand it, you need to make more extensive Photoshop projects out of it, or you may need to upscale it. And so you can do that in Photoshop, but you know how it works when you upscale. There are AI powered upscalers now that you can drop that in. I use one called Topaz, and it allows you to upscale up to 8 times larger than what it was with pretty good results. Not perfect, but pretty good. Better than you could get straight out of Photoshop, just telling it to make it bigger. Although Photoshop is now integrating AI tools into its software, and so who knows? That may be out of date already. All right, so let's real quick. Let's go through some of the commands that you can use in Midjourney and kind of how this progresses. So the Imagine command, that's the main one. That's where you get an opportunity to drop in a prompt and describe what you want to create. So we could start. We get something simple. So I want to see a duck. Imagine a duck, and it's going to give us some examples of ducks. These are various styles here. We've got realistic to obviously interesting anthropomorphized duck here. So maybe you want to get more specific. And so we tweak the prompt and we say, I want a photograph of a duck. Okay, these look like photographs, but they're not great photographs. I mean, they're good, but not exactly what I was looking for. Maybe I want an amazing photograph of a duck. Okay, these are getting cooler. These are more interesting photographs. But the duck, I don't know. The duck's not doing it for me. Maybe I want an amazing photograph of a beautiful duck at golden hour by National Geographic. And so as you add parameters to your prompt, you can craft the image into something that you want. You can also blend images together. So maybe you found this image. This is from Unsplash. Here's a girl, and maybe I just think this is the right kind of person for the image I'm trying to create for some reason. She fits the bill, but the environment's not right. She's sitting in I don't know, too comfy a chair. She looks like she's in a house. Maybe I don't want her in the house. Maybe I want her in a coffee shop. Well, I can tell Midjourney to blend those two images together and give me a girl that looks a lot like that girl. Not perfect, but that girl in a coffee shop that looks a lot like that coffee shop. And again, these aren't exact results, and you can tweak and you can drill in to get different results here. But you can also drop in an image into a prompt. So you can say, hey, I want you to start with this general image, and then I want you to expand on that in the way that I described. So maybe I have an image of Abraham Lincoln. This is an actual photograph, colorized, of Abraham Lincoln that I've done some cleanup to make sure that it's just Abraham Lincoln. And then I'm going to drop that in a prompt because what I really want is Abraham Lincoln working at a coffee shop. And so I can imagine this image. That would be a URL to that image. Beautiful unsplash photography of Abraham Lincoln using a laptop and drinking coffee in a modern coffee shop with windows. Now, here's one thing to explain again how Midjourney works. Midjourney's been trained on millions of images from the internet, specifically images that have captions attached. And so everything it knows is about associating those captions with that image and what it can tell that's in that image. And so that's what it knows. And that gives it some proclivities. It's going to be good at things that it has seen thousands and thousands of examples of. And it's not going to be good at things that it doesn't have many examples of. It doesn't have enough data to form an understanding of what it might look like to have Abraham Lincoln in a modern coffee shop with a laptop. I really struggled to get Abraham Lincoln and a laptop in the same photo because Midjourney knew that Abraham Lincoln has never been photographed with a laptop anywhere in sight. In fact, it tended to want to make the images look old and worn and vintage. I love this one that has Abraham Lincoln sitting in front of a portrait of himself. So I can take it a step further, though, and then I can keep tweaking settings, and I can use blends. Once I got, okay, I've got Abraham Lincoln the way I want it. I found an image with a laptop the way I want it. Now I can blend things together like that. So I'm going to blend it with this image. This is an image from a coffee shop with a laptop and coffee. I'm going to blend that together with this image up here in the upper right-hand corner, because that looked like the Abraham Lincoln that I wanted here. And that's where you get this image. So you combine the two. Again, this is you can use those images in your prompt, and you can use multiple images. And now we have Abraham Lincoln using a laptop in a modern coffee shop. I'll pause here to note that you can see down here, there's some other parameters that you can add to this prompt, and there's reference for that. So you can look up all the different parameters that you can add. But the AR is for aspect ratio. That by default, it's always going to be square unless you say, hey, actually, I need a 3:2 ratio or a 16:9 ratio. You can also, if you're trying to figure out, gee, how can I help Midjourney draw this picture that I'm imagining? Maybe I have a reference that I like and I want more pictures like that. You can use the describe function where you feed it an image and it will come back with a prompt that it thinks would fit that image. So let's say I found this image out there and like, ooh, okay, that's a cool image that feels very branded potentially for a brand. How would I get more images like that? And so if you use the describe function, then it'll come back with these prompts with these keywords that it thinks fits the bill. And so you could try one of these. And I tried that top one, and here's what I got. Obviously not an exact match, and you could come in here and tweak your prompt to dial that in, but it gets pretty close. And so that's a great tool for if you already have something that you know you want, you can start there, get a description. There's things that are non-intuitive here, like Midjourney's referencing some artists that I've never heard of. And in fact, I took a minute to look these up, and I don't know why it thought that this art was related to their styles, but it did, and it did in fact work. So that that's a great way to learn some keywords that may not be obvious, but that may help you get to the result you want. All right. So I want to jump through some specific use cases where I think this kind of paradigm could help us with branded imagery. So here's an example, a real life example. This is a side project. In fact, it's for my wife. My wife is a safe and sound protocols. Part of what she does as a wellness coach. She partners with therapists and psychologists, helping people overcome stress and other things. And safe and sound protocol is this. I'm not going to do it justice if I try and explain what it is, but it involves listening to very scientifically, very carefully produced audio tracks that interact with the nervous system and help build nervous system resilience. And so to talk about the safe and sound protocol, we had some specific requirements here. We needed the model to be wearing over-the-ear headphones. It couldn't be earbuds. It needed to be a certain kind of headphone that fit all the way over the ears and were a certain quality. And they needed to be on a video call at home, because they don't just listen to it on their own. They need to do it with the practitioner, with the provider, and they're doing it on a video call. And so the mood of the photograph, it needed to be peaceful, it needed to be safe, it needed to feel warm. There's very specific demographics that we wanted to be represented here. Like, we didn't want the beautiful stock people. We wanted these to feel like real people, because that's the target, real people. And we wanted ethnicities beyond Caucasian, looking for that diversity. And typically the audience here was middle-aged or mature woman or children. Those are the two people that my wife tends to work with. And so we were looking for those two demographics here. And we have some specific brand colors. Similar to, like, if you think about it, when you're seeing a commercial on TV, it's a Target ad long before it said it's a Target ad. Because the images that they're using, the color palette that they're using is branded already to Target. And so you can enhance this connection to the brand by just using the right brand colors. And so after trying some different things, honing in on some prompts, we're able to come up with this beautiful, bright photograph of a blissful, mature Black woman smiling at a video call with her laptop, listening to music on over-the-ear wireless headphones in a brightly lit room with natural light, with decor with small accents of pastel pink and seafoam green. And so that took some trial and error to dial into the right colors, the right keywords to give it to get the right colors here. But then we have this, and we can choose from any of these images. We can expand on this and generate more, however more we need. And so I'm going to go through some of the different ones that we ended up with here. This was one of the top picks, but we can keep going. Here's another one that also feels very similar. Here's another one. In other words, we can generate a whole set of images that all feel cohesive, and we can tweak whatever parameters we want. If we wanted, different ethnicities here, different demographics, we could drop them in and use most of the same keywords and get a whole set of branded images that all work. For the kids, you drop that in here. Now, one thing about the kids, when they're doing this, typically they're also doing some kind of activity, drawing or coloring or building with Legos. And so we can drop that in here. Now, I'll note here, because it's pretty obvious, it still doesn't get everything right. If you look closely here, you can see this pencil is facing the wrong direction. That's an easy fix in Photoshop, but you do have to be on the lookout for little things that it gets wrong. Sometimes it doesn't get it all right. I'm going to note a couple other things that you might see in these prompts. You can see down here there's this ::1, and then another word, and then a ::negative 0.5. So that's true. Maybe she's erasing. That's it. You could give multiple prompts here, and you can give Midjourney a different weight to them. So if it was really important that this was Asian child, I could stop it there and say, hey, I could weight that heavily. But the key technique for me here that I learned is that sometimes you have to give it a negative weight on something that you want to make sure you don't have. Because here's the thing, in these images, that it's been trained on the internet, and some of those images that it's pulling from are stock images that do have these watermarks built in. And so now there's a copyright question in there, but it's not that stock image, but it's learned, hey, images like this, sometimes they have this watermark, so I might toss that watermark in there, unless you tell it, hey, I don't want a watermark, and that'll help get rid of it. Another thing I'll note here is that often in images that we want, we need some copy space as designers. We need some room here where we could put some words or headline, and so adding that copy space keyword will get you a different image. This is otherwise the same kind of prompt, but by saying copy space, it's like, oh, I need to put some kind of blank negative space here, so that because that's what I associate with copy space. Now, what if, okay, you've got this subject matter right, you've got the colors right, you've got the kind of mood right, but what if you decide, hey, it'd be cool if I could stylize these a certain way for a brand? What if this brand, what if we were running with kind of a watercolor feel? Well, now we can do that. Now we can just change a few keywords and say, instead of saying, hey, I want a photograph here, I want a watercolor painting. And now we get a whole different vibe that, again, we can carry through. We can keep using this prompt and getting more examples of watercolor images of the same subject matter. This style feels a little different than this. You can keep tweaking to hone it in. You can also use variations. So, for example, we had this image earlier. Maybe we really liked the composition here. I thought that was perfect, but hey, actually, I want that in watercolor. Well, now we can do what Midjourney calls a remix, make a variation, where you can say, hey, I want essentially this composition, but I want to change it now. So in this case, we said, all right, let's make it a watercolor. And now it's that same image, but it's got this watercolor effect that it's applied. All right, it's 2 o'clock. We're going to go another 15 minutes here, but I want plenty of time for question and answers. So I'm going to start moving a little faster here. But there's lots of art styles you might use here. So say, for instance, you wanted to create a line of space-themed t-shirts, and you wanted it monochrome, black and white. Well, once you dial in the words that you need to use to generate the image, the kind of image that you want, you could just keep going and generate however many you need to. You could toss in a giraffe in a spacesuit for some reason, because why not? Maybe you have a brand that's got this urban feel to it, and you want this street art look. But once you dial in the prompt that gets you the look that you're looking for, you can keep giving it other subject matter. Maybe it's a coffee shop. Maybe it's an urban coffee shop. Maybe it's a church. Whatever it is, now you've got a theme that you can keep generating images for. Maybe it's a pop art look that you're looking for. Maybe you want a bunch of images of people jumping in splashes of bright colored paint. Maybe you want to blend that style with the street art style and make something that's a combination of the two. All right, so those are just some of the possibilities here. I need to cover a few things that AI is not good. AI image generation. It hasn't figured these things out yet. Again, this may change in a matter of months, but it is not good at crowds of people. Now, from where you sit, looking at this image from back here, this may look pretty good. I was going for the kind of the lobby feel of a church with happy conversations happening. From a distance, it looks fine. If we zoom in here, I don't know if you can still see, but if you were to zoom in, you can see that we've got some deformities here, guys. None of these faces look right. They're all a mess if you were to zoom in. And so that's where AI is going to break down. The more people are in the shot, the more likely it is to go haywire. So even adding a second person in the shot just increases the chance that things go a little weird. AI is not good at engineering. Again, these look good from a distance until you figure out that, hey, these stairs don't go anywhere. Why is it twisted? If you zoom into the details on these things, you can quickly see, oh, this doesn't make any sense. I'm not sure where these stairs are going. So AI, again, AI is misleading, I think, here, in that artificial intelligence. This is not general intelligence. It doesn't know anything except all of these associations of captions to images. And so it doesn't know that stairs need to go somewhere to be useful. It is not good at physics. This is a pretty good looking image until you figure out that this baby is passing through solid matter somehow. So you have to watch out for, again, I found that as I added more people to the shot, more weird things happened. And so that's something to watch out for. Now, generally, because Midjourney gives you 4 sets for every image, often you can find one of them that works, even if the others are messed up. And you can always generate another one and just keep going until you get something that does make sense. AI is not good at words. Again, from a distance, at first glance, this looks pretty good. But if you zoom in, these are not letters. These are not real words. And in this case, from a distance, you can't really notice. But in many cases, anytime words show up, it's just a mess. So AI is not good at words. All right, so here's some tips. Just interesting things that I found, interesting keywords that I found useful as I've been exploring over the last few years. Street photography. To specify, hey, I want street photography of this or that. I've found that this is a great at giving you candid looking shots that don't look like stock, that look like, hey, this was an actual conversation between people just being people. And the fantastic thing about that is it looks like candid, it looks candid, but these are not real people. And so, whereas if you did go out in the street and take pictures of actual people, uh, you couldn't use those images to promote something because they didn't give a release to do that. But these are not real people. And so you could use these images. Um, and I find that it gives just a less stocky feel here. The other one you'll notice here is golden hour. I found if you want that warm glow in a photo, that's how you get it. Add golden hour, it'll get you there. The other thing, this is well known by Midjourney and all of these, is to include by an artist or a photographer. Uh, if you add that to an image, it will try and replicate that style. Now, there's some problems with that. There's even some legal challenges happening with that with some of these artists that people are often going to replicate their style. So I guess this may change. This may become illegal. I don't know. But Beeple is a style. He's an artist. I don't know anything about him except that I know that when I use his name in a prompt, I'm going to get this general color scheme that I like. And so if I add by Beeple or the style of Beeple, I'm going to get a color scheme like this. Here's the cover image for this talk here. And I used several here. I combined multiple. I combined Beeple, and there we got that color scheme. I threw in Pixar to give us a kind of appealing CG look here, and Andy Warhol to give it a little bit of a pop art vibe here. And here's a cute puppy in a spacesuit, just because. And then I talked about this a little bit earlier, negative prompts. You may need to add these negative prompts if you just keep seeing something that you don't want. And as I tried to get an entrepreneur, a young millennial entrepreneur in a shot, it would give them a backpack every single time. And so apparently that's what the training data would suggest for it. And so to get rid of that, I needed to say, hey, I don't want them in a suit and I don't want them to have a backpack. And this one, I said I didn't want a Caucasian. Because that's the other thing I've found, is that if you don't specify, you will get a Caucasian person almost every single time. And so if you don't want that, then you need to tell it something else. All right. So there's a lot there. We can keep talking. I'd love to, if there's been any questions here, we'll jump into that. Jared, you want to hop back in and we can cover some questions. Here's Jared. All right.
Awesome. Yeah, here I am. That was really helpful, enlightening even. Man, it's amazing how 1 second it's like super powerful and it's like, wow, I never would have known that wasn't a photo. And then like you pointed out, another prompt, you look at it and you're like, that's nightmare fuel. That's great. So we have some really great questions here. Someone asked, AI use really thinking ways about it to use AI from sources that they don't knowingly consent or whatever. So how can the church consider this? So you kind of started to touch on that a little bit.
If I had spent decades now studying and get something problematic, and that's a different territory than most of what I hope to cover here. Where I was going mostly for more realistic images, more photographic images. Because I think that's different. That's like, hey, just like a child learns by looking around at the world and being told that's a banana, you know,
Yeah.
and you know, that's kind of what these machine learning models have done with images.
Yeah.
And so, if you want a picture of banana, fine. Now, if you want a picture of banana painted in the style of insert artist here, I think that's where that does become problematic. And some artists have come out and said, "Oh, I'm fine with it." Others have said, "No,
Hmm.
this is a problem."
Yeah.
And in fact, I think I heard I think it was Italy, they passed a law that outlawed that already. So this may
Wow.
change in
Yeah.
as laws are formed for this. And so I applaud the question.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say I have an answer.
It's a tough
But
question. I think it's,
yeah,
I wanted to hit on it because it's just so worth considering, especially as a church. I think it's just, even though maybe we don't have the best answer yet, I think it's just worth taking a pause. Like, okay, how do we need to consider this? Is there something to think about and discuss here? So we have a couple like very, very practical questions here. First off, a few people want to know, are you a robot? And if not, why are you lying about being a robot? Um,
I am an artificial intelligence. Any semblance of intelligence is in fact artificial.
that's good. Yeah. Yeah. I'm going to steal that. Um, so one question here: are there any Mid-Journey alternatives that maybe you could recommend, or maybe they're free to use, or there's just maybe as accessible or worth considering as well?
The other one I think out there, and I've not played with this one yet, and it's and I, not for lack of trying, I have tried to figure out, hey, how do you access this tool and use it, but it's more complicated it seems. That's stable diffusion,
Hmm.
and I've seen it used incredibly powerful. The stable piece is important because what that allows is people using it not just in stills but in video. So I've seen there's some great videos out there. If you follow Corridor Crew on YouTube, they replicated the style of Into the Spider Verse in their own video using it. If they trained it on that style, they made a video and they used Stable Diffusion and other tools. I mean, it's more complicated than I'm going to make it sound right now, but they
Yeah.
were able to pull that to replicate that very unique style. Now they also talked about, we were able to do this as an experiment. Is it fair to the artist who worked so hard on that? No, and so we don't know what to do
Yeah.
with that. But
They did the Wes Anderson ones too. There's like Star Wars and Wes Anderson style, Lord of the Rings and Wes Anderson style.
oh,
They did
okay,
a
yeah,
few
I
of
haven't
those,
done that.
which were
Yeah.
really interesting too. Yeah.
Um, and there's ones that make it really easy on apps that you can get on the phone. There's lots that you could explore. Um,
Hmm.
but Midjourney,
Okay.
as far as I've been able to tell, Midjourney is best at people right now.
Yeah.
So that's one.
And that kind of fits kind of what with the angle you said you were thinking about photography and trying to use images for that. This is a really interesting question. This kind of hits on the how can the church consider this that we talked about initially, but this one's kind of more practical of how would you advise an average church creative or communicator, maybe even a pastor, use AI tools, um, images or otherwise, right now, like today, prepping for a sermon maybe or whatever. How could this be used, or what would be some thoughts there?
Yeah, as a creative, I would encourage you to learn this stuff because it's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
And as fast as it's developing, I'd rather. And if any of us do have a fear of like, oh, am I going to get replaced by AI? Well, the answer is not to just ignore it and hope it goes away. The answer is to use it as a tool
Yeah.
and to know how to use it as it develops. Um, Now, again, I think AI is great. I think it is a tool. I don't think it can replace human beings anytime soon for any of these things, whether it's writing. I use ChatGPT all the time. It's extremely helpful. It's also very limited. Again, it's not an actual general intelligence. It is a text prediction algorithm. It's trying to
Yeah.
predict what word makes the most sense to come next. That makes it good at helping you with some things and bad at others. And
Yeah.
so
Definitely.
jump in, learn it, use it, and figure out how it can help you.
That's great. Man, we are pretty much at time here. There's a bunch more questions here. Some really good ones that are worth considering and discussing. I wish we had time for it here. Is there one you wanted to hit on?
Real quick, some of these
Yeah.
are relevant. If you got to jump off, you got to jump off. But
Yeah.
thoughts on using AI to alter images taken in your
Yeah.
church,
That's a good
particular
one.
of people. And see, that's where like there was a controversy. There was an example of this that came out of one of I think it was a Facebook group, where someone had there was an image of a little girl wearing a mask, and they used Photoshop's AI fill tool to replace the mask with a smile. And I think that's problematic here because that's a real person,
Hmm.
and now they've changed that person. Now it's that little girl, except there's a face and smile that's not hers in this
Yeah.
image. Um, Now, obviously, you could do things like that with Photoshop before. It's just easier now. And so I think that's problematic. I think if you're talking about a real person, people that people know in your church, don't change that person. That'd be my take.
Hmm.
That's a real person.
Yeah.
And that's where I think if you can generate the whole person and it's not a real person, there's an advantage there. Some of those considerations are
Hmm.
eased up there. There was one other. Someone asked about if you upload stuff to Midjourney. That's one thing about the terms of Midjourney. Like whatever you generate, yeah, you own it, but Midjourney also has the right to use that image and the prompt you use. So that might be a consideration
Yeah.
to consider.
Hmm.
All right, I think we covered some urgent ones there that I did want to hit.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Good stuff, man. Well, thanks again so much for sharing this and discussing it. It's very relevant and it's now, like you've addressed, it's happening, and so we just need to think about what do we do with it? How do we think about it? How do we use it? How do we take advantage of it and do it in a way, ultimately, of course, right, that honors the Lord even. So those are all just really worth considering and thinking about. But yeah, so thank you everyone for being here. This is June ArtSpeak community, ArtSpeak University, and so we'll be back next month with July, and we hope you can join us then. But also, we do have the ArtSpeak community, where again we're talking like this about all kinds of interesting, great, relevant things, AI, big questions, or maybe what your dog is up to right now. All kinds of great community things happening there. So we'd love for you to join us. Check it out. I think it's is it community.artspeak.com? I think that's what it is, right? Or
Community.artspeakcreative.com.
artspeakcreative.com. Beautiful. Cool. So we'll catch you guys next time. Have an excellent day. And yeah, we'll see you in the channels.